you think has the biggest bollocks on YouTube? Me? No, definitely not me. Maybe one of the Paul brothers. No, probably not though. Mr. Beast maybe? Or maybe Frankie McDonald, the man who continuously uploads videos of him getting chased by wild animals, aliens, gorillas, you name it.
Sounds like the black bears are coming. Oh my god, the black bears are after me!
And it may not even be Frankie. But if you have a name in your head, I implore you to throw it out in the comment section down below. Just kidding, that's blatant engagement bait. Because the guy with the biggest balls on YouTube is Friendly Jordies, a YouTuber from Australia.
Hey, notice anything about the way that I'm dressed? That's right, I'm wearing a dress shirt for once in my life, and it's quirky.
This man has made it his mission to document in extreme detail and call out corruption in his government.
All right, I've got to apologise. I know that for the last 10 years straight, I've been saying that Labor being in power would make the average Australian better off. But shit, look at this. Australia records the biggest income decline in the developed world.
He also calls out organized crime and the gambling lobby.
You can tell how based or cringe a man is by his enemies. Sun Tzu. Well, if that's the case, Mr. Tzu, let's look at who comes after me. The state government, property developers, a strange police unit, and more recently the gambling lobby, Clubs New South Wales.
As a result of this man's dedication to meaningful journalistic coverage of high-profile corruption in his local area, he's faced many real-world threats and dangers, legal threats, intimidation, and even attempted murder.
Someone has clearly just tried to kill Jordan Shanks. He's extremely upset. It's not something he can make a gag about, you know. And as he said, the list of suspects is considerable.
And this is not a joke, by the way. This is actually very serious, and it's something that I've kept up with for a very long time, but it started before I really made these types of videos. So I decided I should make one about it. As an example of some of the danger that he's faced from doing his job very well online, about a year ago, he had his home firebombed.
A man with alleged links to a major crime family has been charged over the firebombing of Jordan Shanks' Bondi home. The high-profile YouTuber known as Friendly Jordies was not at home during the blaze in November last year. It caused significant damage to the property and to homes around it.
We'll be talking about the videos he made around the time that it happened and what's happened since then until now and his recent updates and why it's all incredibly important. Jordan has covered a lot of varying topics on his channel over the years. For example, he confronted a scammer at their home, which requires massive balls of steel, and that's some shit that is awesome, and you love to see it.
Oh, but that's okay, Brian. We just got an award for you. We've got an award for you. Most Improved Honey Pot. Come on, take the award. You don't have to pay money for it. Brian, I'm really here because I've got a genius business pitch for you.
But the thing that has gained him the most notoriety over the last year or so, and the reason that we're talking about him today, is his historic battle with corruption and his coverage of it in the government of New South Wales, which is a place in Australia, and particularly his battle with the former Deputy Premier of New South Wales, a fella by the name of John Barilaro. John Barilaro. The examples of the former Deputy Premier's corruption are extensive. Check this out.
It kind of begins with videos I was making about the insane land clearing rates in New South Wales because of the actions of John Barilaro's government. Led by Premier Gladys Berejiklian, we had an increase in land clearing rates by over 1,300%, making Australia the only developed nation having a global deforestation hotspot next to its name, and putting koalas on track for extinction by 2050.
The former Deputy Premier John and his father also stole a club before entering politics. An absolutely insane story.
John became increasingly agitated by the videos we were making. One in particular seemed to really bother the Barilaro family. It was called The Italian Job. That was released in November of 2020. It was an expose that detailed how John and his dad, before politics, became the directors of their local Italian club. They then racked up a bunch of unsecured debt, and as directors sold the clubhouse property for pennies to a company they directed and owned shares in, thus becoming the landlords. They then jacked up the rent against themselves, forcing the Italian club to go defunct and leaving them with the property as directors of the club they had already sold to themselves for a bargain. Later they sold that property, formerly owned by the Italian community, to developers, making a $700,000 profit.
How did John Barilaro respond to Jordy with all this unwelcome attention? He called him racist. Classic, man.
Oh, what the f***? She's never even personally killed one koala. The one she backed over was an accident, bruh. I'm like, what'd you call a koala killer? Where the f***'s the body? I didn't see the koala. Where's the f***ing DNA evidence, bruh? Still gets loved to this day, one of the classics. Then one morning, we got calls from sources in New South Wales Parliament claiming that John Barilaro was very shitty at that video, huffing and puffing, claiming that the impression was racist.
Jordan's response to John's accusation of him being racist was amazing, as you could probably imagine. He pointed out that John didn't even use his real name, which is Giovanni Dominic Barilaro. Instead, he goes by John.
Willing to change his entire identity, right down to his name. Surely distressing his inner child who would wonder,
Hey, Giovanni, what's the matter? You're not talking with your accent no more.
He also called out the fact that John has built his political career and platform by attacking political correctness. But now that he's on the receiving end of some unwelcomed, unwanted attention, he just changes his tune when it's convenient for him. Classic politician moment.
John Barilaro was a man who built a career railing against political correctness, and now he was in an article taking issue with me doing an impression of him, and specifically annoyed by the inclusion of the word bruz. That's Australian slang for brother/cousin, usually used by utter legends.
Also, bro, being Italian's not a fucking race. Dude, that's not a race. You can't be racist to Italian people. Sorry, that isn't how it works. There are some times when the differences between race and ethnicity are difficult to define, but this is not one of those times. That is an Italian man. So obviously, after knowing all this, Jordan could not back down now that he'd begun engaging with Barilaro. Do you remember the Ashley Madison data breach that resulted from a hacker group obtaining user data? Well, that's a part of this. Yes, Ashley Madison, the dating website that caters to married people looking to have an affair. If you haven't heard of the Ashley Madison thing, I definitely would look into it because it was pretty fucking notorious and resulted in a lot of divorces and a lot of just people getting upset. Now, if you don't see where this is going, Jordan discovered that John Barilaro had signed up for Ashley Madison.
Perhaps the most interesting part about this Ashley Madison account is the username. If you're creating an Ashley Madison account, you're going to want a powerful username. A username that demonstrates you're not f***ing around. You're on this website to satisfy your carnal urges, and this account has a username that truly screams that and more rare. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to say because I'm building up to let you guys know possibly the funniest thing we've ever discovered at Friendly Jordies, and it feels like a waste to give it to you so quickly. I have to build suspense. So again, I will say this is the username for an Ashley Madison account linked to the ex-Deputy Premier's old email address. You ready? Hang on. Okay. The username for the account is 3, 2, 1. John loves to lick.
And Jordan, as you could probably even imagine on top of that, he called him to ask about it. Well, you probably couldn't fucking imagine that because that's ridiculous.
Hello, John speaking.
Hey, this is recording. How you going, man?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. What's going on?
Oh, not much. I was just wondering, have you had any external affairs? Like, extramarital, let's say?
Who is this?
No one you'd know, bruz.
All of that paired with Jordan filming a video all about Barilaro inside his own residence that was listed on Airbnb. This was all enough for Barilaro to take things to the next level. John, or at the very least his office, called the New South Wales Police, specifically the Counterterrorism and Special Tactics Command Units, to try and grant surveillance of Jordan and his friend Christo Lanker.
I didn't know this at the time, but these videos caused John's office to contact the New South Wales Police Force just days after their release, specifically the Counter-Terrorism and Special Tactics Command. New South Wales Police then set up a dedicated strike force to put surveillance on us, a YouTube channel.
Police would later arrest Christo, Jordan's friend, and assault his mother and sister in the process, which is not surprising to me.
No, I'm allowed to film it though.
No, you're not.
No, I'm allowed to film it.
No, you're not. Because you're under arrest.
Could you
I'm
film
allowed
this?
to film
Can
it.
you film this, Mum?
You can film it. That's
Okay.
okay. But you're not allowed to. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to. No, Mum, you can take my.
No,
No, you can take my phone. No, take my phone. Take my phone.
This is not Australia.
Yeah, it's Mark Day.
Have you got the number? You hurt a 50 51-year-old woman. You knocked
I
me
tripped over.
You killed my dog.
I tripped
who's
over.
old.
Okay?
No, you did not.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
pushed your way. You pushed
No,
me
no,
down.
I tripped over that.
By the way, for context, this is Australia's anti-terror police unit arresting the friend and or employee of a YouTuber who is documenting and covering corruption in the government. That is fucking ridiculous, dude. Now, Jordan at this time was on tour and not home, but he was informed by his neighbors that the police did in fact show up to his house, and he had his lawyer call the police, who initially denied that it ever happened. Who knows, if he was there, they would have fucking probably taken him in. Probably would have stuffed and cuffed him. Jordan also had his lawyer Mark call the police department, who initially denied that they ever showed up to his house until the lawyer provided specific times in which they did.
So I get my lawyer Mark to call up the police, who at first deny that there was any visit at all. And only after Mark quotes a time and date does he get transferred to the Counter-Terrorism and Special Tactics Command, specifically the Fixated Persons Unit, a unit set up in the wake of a deadly siege in the centre of Sydney. Basically, this unit's MO is to stop lone wolf terrorists.
And they informed Jordan's lawyer that they were there to arrest him. What the fuck? He was being investigated by this epic special operations unit due to his clear obsession with John Barilaro. And he's a deranged stalker, etc, etc, etc. So obviously, Jordan being a YouTuber and an actual journalist, he covered this blatant use of police specifically and personally against him to silence him and his associates, as well as the fact that John Barilaro denied involvement in the task force targeting Jordan, which Jordan then goes on to prove is a fucking lie.
Right, but just to clarify, so you had no role in that particular unit being
But Tom,
involved
I've already
in
said,
the...
I've actually made it clear, Tom. I've said absolutely not. And again,
Okay.
for you to even be asking that question is an indictment on your level of journalism, because you're just going off remarks by an individual who is, as you know, on social media, an abusive individual, that all he does is bullies people online, and that's what you're now supporting. So good luck to you, Tom.
I'm not supporting it, Deputy Premier. I'm just putting something to clarify from you.
No, but I answered the question. I answered the question, and then you put the question to me the second time. So I made myself
Well, I was just saying in any...
clear, Tom.
Yeah.
No, I made myself absolutely clear, Tom.
You can imagine John and the police were very unhappy with this. They tried to get a suspension order on Jordan, preventing him from uploading to social media, specifically his YouTube channel, and that was denied, thankfully. Holy shit.
Because of this video, the police asked the court to find me in criminal contempt and launch an application for a suppression order. That's right, the police try to get another criminal prosecution on top of the charges against Christo. Thankfully, it doesn't go so well for the cops. They end up withdrawing the application and paying both Christo and my legal costs of over $20,000. But Christo's criminal charges still hang over him, and my defo case is still ongoing.
In the midst of all this, as you can probably also easily imagine, there was an ongoing defamation case in which John Barilaro was accusing Jordan of being defamatory, which doesn't make any sense, because when you're saying something that's true, it's not defamatory. The lawsuit, by the way, John had to find out from a news report that was publicized before he was even ever served papers. I don't know how the justice system works in Australia, but apparently not that well. Jordan had to actually go to the office of Barilaro's lawyer to get the papers.
We are on the elevator up to Mark O'Brien Legal to ask to be served because it's been a week exactly, and the press knows all about what I've done wrong, but I don't. Let's find out. Oh, you're a big man, Paul. Thanks so much.
I serve you here with the originating application, the statement of claim and the steps.
Oh, thanks so much. And
Now, around this time, John Barilaro announces his intention to resign from office, citing the bullying he received from Jordan and Google by extension for allowing Jordan's videos to remain on their platform.
The very public defamation case that I have going at the moment, unbelievable, you know, that I have to defend myself from vile and racist attacks in a social setting, in a social media setting.
At this point, we've covered about half of the events that are leading up to the firebomb. Half of the events in the video on Jordan's channel titled Who Firebombed Friendly Jordies. It's worth a watch of his original video. Needless to say, Jordan was doing an excellent job laying the groundwork and clarity of John Barilaro's corruption. Pretty obvious if you watch all the videos, and it's difficult to disprove, especially when you can't just use the police to threaten and harass someone. Maybe that's because it's true. On top of all that, John also laid some of the groundwork for John's potential inclination to violence after attacking a cameraman while being investigated for taking that high-paying job I talked about at the New York Trade Commissioner.
In a confrontation with a Channel 7 cameraman Saturday night, Barilaro was at the wharf at Manly at a bar with his partner and his former chief of staff when the cameraman sought to film them leaving. Police are now looking at the matter.
Man, I wish we had government more like this, just fighting people, getting roasted by YouTubers. You could expose our government all you want, and they don't even respond. They don't care.
Any comments on the alleged allegation of your connection with Jeffrey Epstein?
In the span of 1 week, there were 2 separate firebombing incidents in Jordan's neighborhood. The first incident was the firebombing of Jordan's neighbor's house, which was thankfully able to be put out quite quickly. But later in the week, Jordan's house was firebombed while he was not home, thankfully, but the fire was not able to be put out.
Well, there is still a substantial presence here in Bondi from both Fire Rescue New South Wales and police as they work to get to the bottom of what sparked this suspicious blaze overnight. It was just after midnight when a fire ripped through this home here on Wilga Street. It began on a front balcony and forced the evacuation of neighbouring homes. Luckily, everyone getting out okay.
Right after the firebombing happened, Jordan put out a video titled, "My House Was Firebombed," as one might do after their house is firebombed.
My house was burned down to some degree. I don't know, I haven't seen it yet because I just came back from a tour. So we're going to go now and look at the damage. But yeah, it looks like it was some heavy hitters.
So the firebombing in the I Was Firebombed video happened months before the Who Firebombed Friendly Jordies video. In that video, which we've been covering up until this point, that's when he condenses a lot of his investigations into John into one succinct source that we can all extract from and formulate our own opinions. He never accuses John Barilaro of being the one to firebomb him. He clearly states that early in the video, he's not alleging anything. And he lays out the fact that it is quite a jump to go from attacking a cameraman to firebombing someone's home. That is a different thing for sure.
And look, just to be clear, I'm not alleging anything here. And it is too big of a jump to go from beating a cameraman in public to firebombing a house. So obviously I'm not saying he did it, but he did do this. Wailed on a cameraman.
Now, towards the end of the Who Firebombed Friendly Jordies video, in a section that we haven't even mentioned or talked about at all yet, I've alluded to organized crime a couple times. One of the many jobs, lucrative jobs, that John had lined up for himself after he resigned as the deputy premier, whatever the fuck that means, by the way. He showed that John Barilaro had set himself up to become the executive director for a company called Coronation Properties. Now, Coronation Properties has very serious ties, according to Jordan, to one of the most violent organized crime gangs in Australia's history, the Alameddine crime family. They sound nice.
In August last year, we released an investigation into this developer, which detailed never before published links between them and one of the most violent crime organizations in all of Australian history, the Alameddine crime family, who are in no way suspects in the firebombing. No, not them. I'm sure they all have very credible alibis.
Honestly, at this point, if I were Jordan, I wouldn't talk about it anymore. Organized crime people are scary. Crimes in general are scary. Have you guys ever thought about how scary that is? Jordan had covered Coronation and Barilaro's connection to them 3 months before his home was firebombed. A few members of the Alameddine crime family have faced serious charges of very serious crimes. Andy Nahas, the former secretary of Coronation and director of the construction wing of Coronation, he had faced kidnapping charges, which were dropped, by the way, but conveniently after the victim recanted his testimony and then vanished. That's not good.
We revealed that Andy Nahas, the now former secretary and director of the construction wing of Coronation, MN Builders, he was charged with kidnapping in 2009 after an extremely violent incident where a man was chased down, kidnapped, held against his will and bashed by a group of bikies, one of whom is now on trial for murder.
Surely John Barilaro wouldn't run directly to a crime family and then they wouldn't be the ones to firebomb Friendly Jordies' home, right? People in the government are there to represent us. So now we fast forward to December 21st, 2023, when Jordan uploaded a video to his channel announcing that someone had been arrested in connection to his firebombing.
More than a year later, police have charged 37-year-old Tufi Jr. Tawesi Awalua over the fire. He is an alleged associate of the Alameddine crime family.
Police say more arrests are expected in the coming days.
The Alameddine crime family was mentioned by Mr. Shanks in a video posted on his YouTube channel last year, 3 months before his house was allegedly firebombed.
37-year-old man by the name of Tufi Jr. I'm not going to even try to say it.
Tufi Jr. Tawesi Awalua.
I assume this man is also an idiot because he didn't do a very good job firebombing Jordan's home. A report from The Guardian that same day shows that the police suspect at least 3 other people linked as well, and they also expect further arrests in the coming weeks. Police allege the attack was coordinated and targeted and said further arrests were expected in the coming weeks. Get Supt Gordon Arbinja said police believe there were at least 4 people involved, including the man arrested on Wednesday, and that they had links to an organized crime network that is situated in the southwest of Sydney. This man, police allege, used his own vehicle as a getaway car. What a troglodyte! So we get the good announcement, right? The guy gets arrested, and then there's clearly an investigation. The Guardian is showing it. In Jordan's video, though, he also announces that he'll be taking a break from uploading to his YouTube channel, because up until this point, he's been posting fairly regularly. That was 10 days before the end of December, and here we are in the middle of February. Did we ever see anything happen or any further arrests as suggested by the police? Well, 12 days ago on February 1st, Jordan uploaded another video titled Statement from Friendly Jordies, in which he says that they took the break from uploading to see how certain individuals would respond to the arrest in connection to the firebombing.
You might have noticed that we haven't been releasing videos after the police arrested a suspect for the firebombing of my house. While we're very grateful for their persistence throughout this ordeal, we felt it would be prudent to see what the response would be from certain individuals.
He never named any names, but I think we can assume with our functioning brains that it maybe has something to do with the Alameddine crime family, or maybe has something to do with John Barilaro. I'm not exactly sure. The response from these individuals, Jordan reveals, has been one of perplexing confidence. He says that many of the prime suspects that police had suspected of doing this were covered in his original video on Coronation, the video from 3 months before his home was firebombed.
If you follow the people, the money, and the companies that were all connected to Tony K and this threat, and you follow them for years down the line, what you'll find is a web of disturbing connections to some of the most senior political and senior business figures in Australia. This is a story about the kings of Sydney's property development industry, an attempt to make sense of their coronation.
Starting to make sense, man. Starting to all add up here. He says that in the wake of this arrest, they have become more blunt with their threats, and they are threatening dire consequences if Jordan's video remains up, and that they don't consider these threats idle threats.
Their response has been one of rather perplexing confidence. Buoyed by the lack of further arrests, they have decided to be much more blunt with their requests, threatening anyone they believe had handed over information to assist with the creation of the video Coronation. This video detailed links former Deputy Premier John Barilaro had with development company Coronation Property. The video encompassed more than Coronation Property Associates. It included an array of spirited characters, many of whom were enraged with its release. Police have made it very clear that many of the prime suspects in the firebombing are in that video. Now, over a year later, these figures are once again venting, threatening dire consequences if the video isn't taken down. Given these people's colourful history, we don't consider these to be idle threats.
As you can probably imagine, Jordan and his team have tried to contact authorities. There has been no action, makes sense, or response, also makes sense, and these men are behaving as though they are above the law. Maybe because they quite literally are. And the lack of action from law enforcement has led Jordan to believe that they might be above the law, which would make sense. I mean, you know, pretty classic stuff here.
Naturally, we contacted the appropriate authorities, but it appears these men have engulfed the state in a state of fear. It appears these men are indeed above the law. It appears these men are free to point the scythe at anyone they wish, blackmail them with the most heinous, violent acts imaginable, and there is not an authority in the land powerful enough, or perhaps foolhardy enough, to check them.
So given these threats and lack of action from law enforcement, and seemingly the only result of Jordan leaving his video up on his channel will be the deaths of innocent people, they are caving to the demands of Alameddine, and they are removing the Coronation video.
We have done our absolute best to keep the video up. Believe me, we have. But if the content of coronation is to fall on willfully deaf ears, if its only tangible result is the death of innocent people, we will not have their lives hang on our conscience. In other words, you win. We're taking down the video. Congratulations, you run this city. We were ignorant of the fact that Sydney is more or less 1920 Chicago, but now that we're fully aware, you are free to run your business without further bother from us. Sorry for the inconvenience.
He then tells them that they win, they run Sydney, and Sydney is essentially 1920s Chicago, where gangs run things, Al Capone style. Through all this language that he's using, you can absolutely tell that it's a begrudging decision, and it's not one that I feel like, knowing Jordan's character a little bit over the years of following this, this is not something that I would see him ever doing. So it's clearly a massive, massive threat and a massive problem, and you can tell that he is just incredibly frustrated with the lack of accountability and reliability in the Australian justice system. Jordan in the video further laments by again calling out the Australian media, who are supposedly supposed to be the voice of the people, touting public interest, but we all know that's a fucking joke. Media, it's part of an establishment. There's nothing that can be done. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. He then at the end of his video drops a line that is truly chilling, and it says, "There is now a currency more dependable than the dollar, and that is terror."
We've learned that there is a currency that is far more dependable than the dollar, and that's terror.
We have a huge problem with organized crime in America, but it is just our government.
Any outlaw regime that has ties to terrorist groups and seeks or possesses weapons of mass destruction is a grave danger to the civilized world.
The Al-Madeen family does seem to be untouchable, and I think that was the true purpose of Jordan's original coronation video. He used the example of the connection between coronation to Al-Madeen and then the later hiring of John Barilaro, a former deputy premier, like one of the most powerful men in all the land. He had an executive role at a company run by organized crime freaks. So it's wild, man. They got away with kidnapping, they got away with murder, and they also got away with firebombing a reporter. There's a lot of corruption all around the place, but this is absolutely by far the worst that I've seen in the modern era that has been so just like cut and dry covered. It's crazy. It's scary, dude. I hope for Jordan's safety that this all goes well for him. He's on tour, by the way. So, you know, hopefully that all ends well. Holy shit.